I'm Davy. I'm awesome. And welcome to Davy's Awesome Movies, where I review the styles of movies that I love the alternative, B-rated, cult-style flicks. And this week it's still Halloween season, so let's continue with the Universal Monsters. This one came out in 1935, and it was directed by James Whale, and it was written by William Hurlbut, John L. Boulderston, and based on Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. Produced by Carl Laemmle Jr., and made and distributed by Universal Pictures. Ladies and gentlemen, The Bride of Frankenstein. The movie opens with three people inside talking during a storm. There's a Lord Byron, a Percy Shelley, and Mary Shelley, the writer of Frankenstein. Mary Shelley is played by Elsa Lanchester, who also plays the bride, or as the bride is casted in the credits, the monster mate. Then again in the credits, the monster mate is casted as... Lord Byron is praising Mary Shelley for writing Frankenstein. He loved the novel, just didn't like the ending. But she informs him it's not over.
Would you like to hear what happened after that?
In real life, Mary Shelley did write plenty of other books, but she did not write a sequel to Frankenstein. Her continuing story of Frankenstein opens with the burning down of the cottage and Henry Frankenstein being taken away. Basically just lopping off the last couple of minutes of the first movie.
Poor Mr. Henry.
Well, as my father would say, bet you won't do that again now, will you? Although in actuality this is a sequel, so yes you will. After everybody clears out, the monster's dead, Henry's being taken to get medical care. One person in particular, Hans, the father of Maria from the first movie, he sticks around even though his wife is pleading with him, just let it go and come home.
I can see his blackened bones. I can sleep at night.
Well, this should go well. Hopefully you swim better than Maria.
No!
Sorry, that was awful. As it turns out, the monster is alive, and now he's made it to where Hans and Maria have something in common.
No!
The monster goes to the surface. Oh great, now Hans has to hear, "I told you so!" Luckily for him, he's already dead. Because as a husband, that fate is worse than death. Then we find another person who stayed behind. Well, that was a reasonable reaction, I guess. The one freaking out is Meanie, played by Una O'Connor, who you might remember from The Invincible Man. I mean, hopefully you didn't forget her. At Henry Frankenstein's home...
Oh heaven, what is this?
It's a recasting of Elizabeth. In this movie, she's played by Valerie Hobson, a brunette. In the last one, she was played by Mae Clarke, a blonde. Why? Because screw detail. They actually did want Mae Clarke to reprise the role, but she couldn't due to illness. So they recasted her. But you could have at least gotten somebody who looks something like her. That's all I'm saying. They were a lot lazier in movie making back then. Then again, it's not the only time they got very lazy when it came to recasting. Minnie, still freaking out, comes to report.
The monster! It's alive! Oh, oh.
And people criticized Eric Freeman for his overacting. Of course, no one believes her.
Let them all be murdered in the beds.
What a nice lady. Now, for some more overacting.
Whoa! Look! Milady! He's alive!
Can you believe it? He is alive! Actually, I can believe it. He's one of the leads. Some time passes. Henry has made almost a full recovery, and he gets a visitor. Hopefully he brought balloons.
Tell him that Dr. Pretorius is here.
No balloons, but a fantastic supervillain name. He even gets a cool villain entrance.
Dr. Pretorius.
I wanted a cool entrance too. Dr. Pretorius asks Elizabeth to leave so he can talk to Henry alone.
We must work together.
Never.
I'd pass too. Because you know, with a haircut like that, he's gotta be evil. Then again, it's not the most evil haircut I've ever seen.
You shut up!
But Dr. Pretorian is very adamant in telling Henry that he is responsible for all the deaths that the monster has committed, and that the monster is alive and still out there. But that if they work together, they can both unlock the secrets to life and death. But you don't need to! It's bacon!
You must see my creation.
I made a macaroni necklace once. It was really nice. I used colored pasta, and it was a present. My wife told me she was proud of me. Henry is intrigued, so they go to Dr. Pretorius' home. And Dr. Pretorius takes out a big wooden box, places it on the counter, and he's about to open it. Much to our anticipation, especially mine. It's Halloween season. There might be candy. Turns out there's no candy, just jars of little people. Not like the little people you and I are used to. I'm not saying Warwick Davis is in there. It's like miniature people. Apparently they're relatives of Midge from Big Top Pee-wee. And he's gotten a little weird with it. Like he made a little king, a little queen, a little bishop, a little devil. Don't know why you would make that one. A little ballerina, and a little mermaid. Again, not the one you're thinking. The little king loves the little queen, but the little queen hates the little king. Such is life. Dr. Pretorius tells Henry that he wants to work with him because he was able to create a man who was human size. He not only wants to learn how, but since Henry made a man...
We will create his mate.
Can't you just take him clubbing or something? The townspeople find the monster, and they all rush him at once. Which, too bad this movie didn't come out before The Invisible Man. Maybe that would have given them an idea of how to handle The Invisible Man. But what they do is they get a really large branch and they tie him to it. They're ready to kill this monster. But first, take him to jail.
Now take him down to the old dungeon, put him in chains.
Why don't you try killing it? Instead, they channel their inner Bond villains, chain it to a chair, and leave as if nothing's gonna go wrong. I mean, because why not? What could possibly go wrong? Oh yeah, that's right. He's a monster with superhuman strength.
Duh!
Through the door, they shoot at it. That just irritates him. Now he's free again, terrorizing the town!
Why don't you shoot him?
That's why. That night, the monster hears music. Oh, I love this part! This is the part where Gene Hackman gives him soup and a cigar and lights his thumb on fire. The blind man hears the monster.
Who's there?
Banana! You were supposed to say banana who? But apparently he's heard this joke, so whatever. The monster likes the music so much, he goes inside.
You're welcome, my friend, whoever you are.
Some tells me this blind man has been robbed before.
I cannot see, and you cannot speak.
He will later. The blind man gives him some food and a bed to sleep in and tells him all about how the blind man has prayed and prayed earnestly to God to bring him a friend, a companion, and finally he's done that! I think you should have been a little bit more specific. The next morning, over breakfast, the blind man is teaching the monster some words.
Drink.
It's wine, but seems like the same person who taught my brother how to speak.
Beers!
But as far as him speaking, Boris Karloff was actually very against it. But he got overruled. They said the monster needs to learn how to speak. However, to kind of appease Boris Karloff, they made sure that his vocabulary in this movie consisted of only 44 words, speaking very little in one-word sentences. He also gives the monster some tobacco.
Good.
I feel like this alone would keep this movie from being made nowadays. Because you're not allowed to show smoking unless it's in a negative light. But this is back in the 30s, when you'd be watching a movie or a TV show, and they wouldn't even have an actual commercial, but a plug-in. Like, out of nowhere, you would just have somebody walk up and be like, "Are you smoking a Winston?" "Yeah, I love Winstons." "Me too, it's great tobacco." I don't personally smoke, don't get mad at me, I'm just saying that's what happened. As they're enjoying some music...
Can you tell us how to get out of this wood? We've lost our way.
Yeah, it's up your ass and to the left. Of course, when they come in, they recognize the monster. While the monster fights them off, they decide to just get the blind man out of there as the place gets set on fire. Which means the blind man is staying at one of your houses tonight. So, he has friends now. They leave the monster to die, but he gets out.
Fred!
He was gonna make espresso. He happens by some kids. Hey, it's Maria! That is really the same actress who played Maria in the previous film. The monster goes into a tomb to hide. And wouldn't you know it, it happens to be around the same time that Dr. Pretorius is there. He and a couple of men are there looking for the body of a female. And wouldn't you know it, one of Dr. Pretorius' men is Fritz. It is actually Dwight Frye, the one who played Fritz in Frankenstein. He also played Renfield in Dracula. In this, he plays Carl. They get the body and Dr. Pretorius decides to stay behind in the tomb. Have a little meal. Because that's not frickin' creepy as hell. And because he's so creepy that he decides to hang around a tomb, he meets the monster.
Smoke, friend.
Yes, I hope so.
You know, smoking will kill you. Never mind. Dr. Pretorius, of course, offers the monster some food and drink, and while doing that, asks him if he knows who Henry Frankenstein is. The monster knows who Henry Frankenstein is. He knows who he is. He knows that Henry made him from dead.
I love dead. Hate living.
Dr. Pretorius tells him, though, that he wants Henry to help him make him a mate.
Woman. Friend.
Yeah, friend. Sure. Catty friend, but friend. Dr. Pretorius goes to Henry, who has changed his mind. He is not helping Dr. Pretorius make any more monsters. He just can't do it.
Nothing can persuade me.
We shall see.
He's still not convinced. Even with the monster there, Henry says he's not doing it. He asks the monster to leave while him and Dr. Pretorius talk. The monster decides to go and give Henry a little incentive by grabbing Elizabeth.
I assure you that the Baroness will be safe to return if you will leave everything to me.
Now Henry's convinced. While working, Henry says he needs a fresher heart. So he sends Carl to get one, but he makes it specific he wants him to go to the hospital, find someone who's just recently died. And if he does this, he'll give him 1,000 crowns. Gotta love a half-assed job. Now they are ready. The body has a brain and a heart. The storm is brewing. They are going to make the bride! While Carl is up on the roof, helping, the monster happens by. Apparently he resembled Fritz way too much because the monster didn't like him. Once they bring the bride down...
She's alive! Alive!
Weird science. Sorry. That's just immediately where my mind goes to every time I hear that. It's Mary Shelley! Mary Shelley!
The Bride of Frankenstein.
He said it! He said it! The bride meets her husband. Well, some people are very against arranged marriages.
She hates me.
Don't get discouraged. Sometimes you have to pursue them a while. Nag them, bug them, get them to go out with you. Show them what a great guy you are. Basically, you gotta wear them down until they look at you and say, fine, I'll settle. Like my wife.
Get away from that fever! You'll blow us all to atoms!
Well, just give him ideas. Elizabeth is freed and at the door, but Henry feels like he can't leave them.
You live. Go.
But not Dr. Pretorius.
You stay. We belong dead.
And... Even in the 30s, they knew how to do a good explosion. Now Henry and Elizabeth are safe. So there you have it. That's 1935 Universal Monster movie classic, The Bride of Frankenstein. Another big success, as it had about a $400,000 budget, which was a big budget back then, and did over $2 million in the box office. Which again, back then was huge. Nowadays it doesn't sound like that much, but you gotta think about it. $2 million back then on a movie would have been as exciting to them as somebody making over $100 million now. Not only is this movie a huge success, but this is actually the only Universal Monster movie where it was basically a continuance of another one, and that monster was accepted as one of the Universal Monsters. But this wasn't the only time they did a continuance either. They did Dracula's Daughter, they did Son of Dracula. Neither one of those two got put into the Universal Monsters, but The Bride of Frankenstein did. And it's funny how iconic that hairdo is. Even people who've never seen this movie, once they see that hairdo, know exactly who it is. Kind of like Frankenstein's flat top. You see the flat top, you know what they're going for. The makeup was done very different in this movie for the monster. However, that was on purpose. The makeup effects artist wanted him to look like he had just come out of being burned very badly. Which, at least they paid some attention to detail. Of course, there was no question that Boris Karloff was going to come back and reprise his role as Frankenstein's monster, but there was question about who was going to reprise the role of Henry Frankenstein. Universal Pictures and Carl Laemmle Jr. really didn't want Colin Clive come back because, at this point, Colin Clive's alcoholism was very out of control. The alcoholism that would play a big part in his death later. In fact, it was said that he was very hard to work with, but James Whale insisted that he comes back to play this, so they worked around it. Not only did they have to work around that, they had to work around the fact that a few days before production, Colin Clive broke his leg, which is why most of this movie he's sitting down. But even the casting of Dr. Pretorius, there are some sources that say that Bela Lugosi and Claude Rains were both considered for that role. Honestly, I like who they got to play it. Of course, the other two could have done it just fine, but he had a really creepy look to him. Too bad back then nobody thought of Slender Man, because he would have been perfect. One of the original scripts that they came out with had it to where Elizabeth died, and the heart that went into the bride was Elizabeth's. But Whale didn't like that idea. And they kind of sort of played off of that when they later did Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, the one with Robert De Niro. We'll get to that someday. Now, like the last film, this one did have some censorship issues, but nothing like the last one. The last one, the censors went crazy about pretty much everything, which is funny to you and me because it seems so mild in comparison to today's horror films. But back then, even this one was controversial. And keeping in the tradition of the last one, when Boris Karloff hurt his back while he was doing the scene in the well, he slipped and dislocated his hip. This guy really suffered to play Frankenstein's monster. Ella Lanchester was only 5'4", so to play the bride and make her look taller, she was actually on stilts. Even though this movie got very positive reviews, though, it didn't almost happen, as James Whale really did not want to do a sequel to Frankenstein. In fact, the studios had at one point decided they were going to do one with or without him, but finally got him to agree to direct the movie after 4 years of badgering. But even then, he rejected the original script, and he rejected several scripts that came at him since then. It was finally this script that he landed on that he said, fine. But apparently he was hoping it would tank, so that he could just do something else. Well, it didn't. My feeling on it is it may not be the best Universal monster movie, but it is very fun and very awesome. And I do recommend again that if you're a fan of nostalgia and classic horror movies like I am, then do not skip out on The Bride of Frankenstein. In my opinion, there's a reason she became one of the classic monsters. Because she deserved it. So there you have it. That's my movie review this week. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you did, make sure to hit like, hit subscribe, hit the little bell so you get notifications when I post new videos, and leave a comment. Tell me what you thought of The Bride of Frankenstein. Tell me which of the Universal monster movies is your favorite. Love you guys.